Hello, my name is Ashton Nichols, and I'm a professor of Sustainability Studies and English at Dickinson College in Pennsylvania. My talk today is entitled Urbanatural Roosting, a New View of Nature. Part 2 will focus on the idea of roosting. Current emphasis on evolutionary ecology does not arise solely from a green sense of the interdependence between organisms and their environments. It derives as well from numerous Romantic and Victorian thinkers and their view of the interconnectedness of all living and even non-living things. My new book, Beyond Romantic Ecocriticism, Toward Urbanatural Roosting, links the zoological and botanical imagery of William Blake to the eco-awareness of William Wordsworth. It connects the eco-sensitivity of John Keats to the eco-anxieties of Alfred Lord Tennyson. By the 20th century, the concept of romantic natural history allows for a critique of the negative eco-theology of Annie Dillard and even a challenge to the eco-catastrophic thinking of Bill McKibben. Along the way, a number of contemporary eco-critics will reveal where our dominant current view of nature has come from, especially since the idea of nature now is not the same as the nature once described by Aristotle, Isaac Newton, or Charles Darwin. The Urbannatural year chronicled in my recent book, my chapters go from spring to spring again, also link the ideas of Romantic natural historians and contemporary eco-critics to our pervasive current sense of an environmental crisis. Hurricane Katrina, the Gulf of Mexico oil spill, climate change, species extinction, and an increasingly uncertain human future. A look at the legacy of Romantic natural history will move beyond the word nature as it has been employed since the Enlightenment, and beyond the nature versus culture split, toward the more inclusive idea of urbannatural roosting. Finally, this book argues that Romantic eco-criticism now needs to give way to a more socially aware version of environmentalism, one less tightly linked to narrowly Western ideas about the self, the other, and the relationship between human beings and the natural world. Urbannatural roosting says that if all humans are linked to each other and to their surroundings, then those same human beings have specific ethical obligations to one another and to the entire world that they share. How might human beings roost on the world? To roost is to make a temporary home. The ancient Greek word for home was oikos, from which we derive ecology. To make such a home in the surrounding environment, the way hawks or ravens or crows roost by day and even more often by night. Most birds roost in trees, while some roost just as successfully on the ground. Bob whites roost on the ground, throughout fields and meadows, while screech owls find hollow cavities in tall trees. This is just one reason why meadows and tall trees need to be left standing, since even otherwise useless meadows and dead trees with no other human purpose are roosting sites for countless birds of many species. Wild turkeys, like crows, find their roosting branches high up in those same trees. A bird initially roosts for its own benefit and for the benefit of its own species. But roosting also has consequences for other species and for the wider environment as well. Roosts have an impact on the trees in which they exist, on high ocean cliffs, and on other nesting sites, and also on their wider surroundings. A bird gathers food where it roosts, and it may also find its mate there. Many birds build their nests where they roost, or they hide themselves and their young from their natural enemies there. Roosts are crucial to the life cycle of most avian species. The word roost describes a home, but a home that affects and is affected by its inhabitants and their wider surroundings. As humans, we roost no less than hawks or eagles or ravens. To roost is to know one place so well that you can locate your home there, so well that you can use that local knowledge for your benefit and for the benefit of those around you. Birds roost by using the natural resources they find around them, but they roost without harming those same resources or those roosts in the process. Human beings now need to take a lesson from the birds. They need to start roosting more carefully on the earth. The phrase urbannatural roosting allows for a closer link between cities and the wilderness, between high-rises and wild places. It also recognizes close ties between those who live within the city limits and those who live out beyond the city, in suburbs, in small towns, in rural areas, even out in the middle of nowhere. Humans, like dogs and dolphins and mayflies, are natural beings. Instead of continuing to describe the non-human world anthropocentrically, in human terms, there are now very good reasons to describe the whole world ecocentrically. This is part of the message about nature that poets like William Wordsworth, John Keats, and Percy Shelley began to teach their culture. The scientist Charles Darwin came to understand that these same links existed, as did the meliorous poet and novelist Thomas Hardy. These literary works offer a powerful index to the emergence of a broadly ecological awareness in Western culture. At the same time, scientific works provide a revealing look at the link between aesthetics, emotions, and the objective world over the past 2 centuries. Many of the great nature poems of the Romantic era were actually written in the suburbs, in the back gardens of great cities, or in the midst of the largest urban spaces on the planet. To be natural originally meant not to be non-human, as it now often seems to mean, but to be born, natura, birth, and also essence, as in the nature of the problem. I want us to return the term to these original meanings. Nature is about things that are born and about the essence of things. Not in the sense of an essentialist philosophical essence, but simply the heart of the matter, the center of things. That is, what is the nature of the problem here? The human-made is no less natural because we have shaped it. It is no less born or essential because it has been fashioned by human hands. The bird makes a nest, and that nest is just as natural as the bird herself. Human hands make a house, and that house is no less natural than the materials that fashioned it, or the human hands that shaped it. Where does the idea of urbannatural roosting begin? It begins with a bit of romantic natural history. William Blake thought that a robin redbreast in a cage puts all heaven in a rage, while Wordsworth read Erasmus Darwin's natural philosophy and used his psychological theories in lyric poems. Meanwhile, Darwin, Charles's grandfather, wrote book-length poems of botanical observation in heroic couplets, and Joseph Priestley penned theological essays while he was also discovering oxygen. Percy Shelley experimented with chemical and electrical equipment in his rooms at Oxford. He almost blew them up. And Mary Shelley was talking about the Italian electrical scientist Luigi Galvani on the same night she conceived Victor Frankenstein's monster. Samuel Taylor Coleridge sought poetically and philosophically for what he called the one life within us and abroad that would unify the apparently disparate elements of creation. Galvanic nerve responses, luminous plankton, sensitive plants like the mimosa, poison trees, the bohun upas, intelligence in animals and sexuality in plants, ideas and images like these fostered poetic reflection and scientific lyricism throughout the century before Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species appeared in 1859. This link between science and poetry in the 19th century is one crucial aspect of the origin of our current ideas about environmental sustainability. These ideas all suggest close connections among the various parts of the natural world, but also among the natural, the social, and the urban worlds in which such versions of nature are being described. Let me offer one final example of urbannatural roosting and its implications. Where would we be today without penicillium, that invisible fungus spore that flew through Alexander Fleming's window in his London laboratory in 1928 and led to penicillin, a drug that has saved tens of millions of human lives? Was Fleming operating in wild nature or in human culture when he came upon that fungus in his window? He was functioning in both. A purely natural object, the airborne penicillium, had landed on a purely cultural product, a petri dish smeared with agar, and the result was penicillin, a natural product of human culture that has changed life on this planet forever. Behind Fleming's discovery of the penicillium mold lay almost 2 centuries of debate, from 1750 to at least 1830, about the link between medicines and aspects of nature that might change human lives: the microscopic world, germ theory, the immune system, and vaccination. Ahead of Fleming's discovery stretched another century of debate about the results of these discoveries. Who would have access to such biological lifesavers? Which societies should control the natural knowledge that might save lives or lead to the loss of millions of other lives? Would the power of such natural knowledge reside only with the developed world and only for the benefit of those cultures that had created such advances? Or might there be a means of moving from a monocultural view of nature to a multicultural one? From a world of self-isolating societies to a world of unified and unifying cultures? As the discovery of penicillin implies, urban culture and wild nature come to much the same thing: urbanature, a new model for roosting on the planet that each one of us shares with other human beings and also with the rest of animate nature.